Hi everyone, it's time for a bit of Bible again. Last time I've been speaking about David, and today I want to speak about his son Solomon. In particular, I want to talk about his wisdom and the profound and lasting impact that it had, not just on Israel at the time, but also in the way it continues to shape Christian and Jewish thinking up to this very day. Only two of the many kings of Israel really had such a lasting impact and provided more to us than simply the stories that we can read about them. One is David, of course, Solomon's father, who is credited with writing at least 75 of the Psalms. And then there's Solomon, who is credited with writing 3 entire books of the Bible: Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Songs, although this is also disputed by some. But personally, I find it quite incredible that God made Solomon the wisest man to ever live, and we get to read what he wrote. But how did he become so wise, and what are his books all about? Let's start at the beginning. I'm reading 1 Kings 3, verses 15 to 14. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream, and God said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." Solomon answered, "You have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful to you and righteous and upright in heart. You have continued this great kindness to him and have given him a son to sit on his throne this very day. Now, Lord my God, you have made me your servant king in place of my father David, but I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among your people you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours?" The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. So God said to him, "Since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have you asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you've asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equals among kings. And if you walk in obedience to me and keep my decrees and commands, as David your father did, I will give you a long life." It reminds me a bit of Matthew in 6:33. "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." Solomon focused on the right thing here. He asked for help in performing his duty to govern God's people, rather than things for themselves. So God gave him what he asked for, and much more. Solomon's wisdom comes from God, as does all wisdom, doesn't it? Solomon says in Proverbs 1:7, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction." And he says, "For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding," in Proverbs 2:6. And we hear a bit more about Solomon's wisdom in 1 Kings 4:29 to 34. God gave Solomon wisdom and very great insight, and a breadth of understanding as measureless as the sand on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all the people of the East, and greater than all the wisdom of Egypt. He was wiser than anyone else, including Ethan the Ezrahite, and wiser than Heman, Calcol, and Dada, the sons of Mahol. And his fame spread to all the surrounding nations. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. He spoke about plant life, from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of the wall. He also spoke about animals and birds and reptiles and fish. And from all the nations, people came to listen to Solomon's wisdom, sent by all the kings of the world who had heard of his wisdom. There is, for example, the story of the Queen of Sheba, visiting all the way from what is now Ethiopia in 1 Kings 10. She was so impressed by what she saw and the wisdom she heard, that according to legend, she did not only go back with presents, but also pregnant by King Solomon. It's impossible to verify these details now, but many centuries later it was found that there was a thriving Jewish community living in the Simeon Mountains of Ethiopia, which traced its origins back to King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. But for the rest of the world, the legacy of his wisdom lived on in a more spiritual way through the writings about him in the Bible and through the books in the Bible that he is credited with writing. So what are his books all about? I just read that he spoke 3,000 proverbs and his songs numbered 1,005, but not all of them are recorded. Now, first of all, the odd one out perhaps, the Song of Songs, which unlike most biblical texts doesn't really focus on law or prophecy or worship. Instead, it celebrates romantic love, desire, deep emotional connection between human lovers. And the songs celebrate the delights of married love and the beauty of the human body, using quite vivid imagery from the natural world to show that all these things are part of the creation that God declared very good. It's a book that stands apart, offering quite a poetic and passionate view of love. And while some see it as a celebration of romantic love as such, others interpret it as an allegory of God's love for his people or Christ's love for the church. Whatever the interpretation, it's quite passionate and poetic imagery reminds us that love is so powerful and intimate and deeply meaningful. Then there's Proverbs, which contains about 800 proverbs, depending on how you count them. I will read out a few for you. Proverbs 15:1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Proverbs 16:3. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. There are also a few narratives like the ant and the sluggard, the drunkard's faith, or the story of the adulterous woman to warn of temptation. And these narratives serve the same purpose as the one-liner Proverbs, and that is to teach us about how to live. And then lastly, there's Ecclesiastes, one of the books of the Bible that I found personally most baffling when I first read it. It begins all grand with the words of the teacher, son of David, king of Jerusalem, and then goes on with meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless, everything is meaningless. What? The whole book reads like a big struggle to me, a big struggle with wisdom, obedience, and the meaning of life itself, an attempt to make sense of it. And I feel that if we want to understand how Solomon, the wisest man ever, ended up making many bad decisions about his life and family and the kingdom, and even ending up worshipping idols, then we need to read Ecclesiastes. In Ecclesiastes 1:18, Solomon hints at the limitations of wisdom, saying, "For with much wisdom comes much sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief." And again in Ecclesiastes 8:16, "No one can comprehend what goes on under the sun. Despite all their efforts to search it out, no one can discover its meaning. Even if the wise claim they know, they cannot really comprehend it." That reminds me a bit of Romans 11:33. "Oh, the depth of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God! How unsearchable his judgment, and his paths beyond tracing out. Who has known the mind of the Lord, or who has been his counselor?" Throughout the whole book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon explores life's temporary nature, questioning whether wealth, success, and even wisdom truly satisfy. And sometimes it sounds like he's grappling a bit with disappointment, realizing that all human achievements fade and even the pursuit of wisdom has limits. Sounds at times like he threw himself completely and wholeheartedly into whatever he was doing at the time and trying to get to the pinnacle of every pursuit, chasing the highs that his privileged position offered. But when he had done and experienced it all, he realized that it was ultimately all meaningless. Solomon, though blessed with divine wisdom, seems to recognize that wisdom alone does not guarantee a fulfilling life. Without obedience to God, even the wisest person can fall into despair. He repeatedly calls earthly pursuits meaningless, and at the end his conclusion is very clear. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. It's Ecclesiastes 12:13-14. In Matthew 22:37, Jesus tells us what the greatest commandment is. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. Romans 11:36. For from him and through him and for him are all things. To him be the glory forever. Amen. So let me sum up what Solomon taught. The wisest man to ever live concluded that whatever you could possibly achieve in terms of career, wealth, number of wives, military might, or even the pursuit of wisdom is ultimately meaningless. The only thing that matters is obedience to God. And it reminds me of what Jesus says in Matthew 6:19. Do not store up for yourself treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. Or consider what the Apostle John writes in 1 John 2:15. Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever. God bless you all.